It's another episode of Effluvium, and I have a guest who started following me on my Instagram, and I was struck by his impeccable taste and his formidable knowledge of style and fashion over the decades. He is an enthusiast of fashion and style that spans back to the vintage eras, luxury in many different facets, not your, you know, your crass, coarse sort of luxury, but the refinement sort of luxury. And I was just really impressed with that, and also with his enthusiasm for fragrance. And I thought it would be a good idea to invite him for a discussion. So his name is Elliot Duprey, and he is based in New York City. He actually has a TikTok with 185,000 followers. So he has quite a following, which is well deserved based on what I've seen of his content and his knowledge. So I am thrilled to have a conversation with him. He's going to be joining me in just a couple of minutes. We're going to allow some people to file in for the live stream for those who are watching live. And we're going to give that a couple of moments. And I thought it would be a good idea to share my scent of the evening. And for those who are going to be joining the chat, hopefully shortly, I would encourage you to share your scent of the evening. And I will, of course, be asking Elliot for his own scent of the evening if he is, in fact, wearing one. So the one that I'm wearing tonight is Jill Sander. And this is Jill Sander Man. This was released in 1981. And it is, the bottle design is something very postmodern, something that almost ahead of its time for the early 80s. And the scent itself is sublime. This is a fragrance that does follow that popular style of fragrance geared towards men, the woody chypre, which really started to gain popularity in the mid 70s through the mid 80s. And there is a lot of patchouli in this, and there is a pretty robust castoreum accord in this as well. But it also has green herbaceous elements. There is a strong basil, this wonderful lemon note that is in the top, and then you have your usual suspects of the time period in the heart, your carnation, geranium. There's a sizable amount of clary sage that my nose detects. Just fabulous stuff. Unfortunately, this is somewhat difficult to find nowadays, but if you are patient and you know how to put together a search engine or put together a saved search, be sure to put in Jill Sander Man or Man One or Pure Man Pure. Any of those will bring it up. If you do searches on eBay or Mercari, and it is the inaugural men's fragrance from Jill Sander. Recently, I shared on Instagram the first two fragrances that were released from Jill Sander. The first one, Jill Sander Woman from 1978, 79, I believe, and then Bath and Beauty, which was released a couple of years later, which are also fantastic. So that's my scent of the night. Love to hear from you. We already have a comment coming in from Philippe. We have our friend Philippe, who is wishing us bonsoir. Scent of the night is Musk Tonkin from Parfum d'Ampere, Marc-Antoine Carticchiato. What a wonderful fragrance. Great choice. And quite appropriate for the evening. Very nice. We have Mishi, who is tuned in. Much love to you, my friend Jean-Qui Scent. Scent of the day is Hira by Papillon. Very nice, very nice. We have 8 people who are tuned in. We have 2 people who have, thank you so much. If yes, as a reminder, don't forget to like the stream. It is important for visibility. So help us out, like the stream. Let's aim for at least 40 likes for this stream. that would be incredible if we could reach 50. So if you haven't already done so, please be sure to hit the like. It is greatly appreciated. 7 people tuned in at the moment. One person maybe dropped out. Maybe he's coming back later. 2 people so far have commented. So let's try to hear from those other 5. Just say hello or hi, or mention your scent of the morning, afternoon, evening, night. Let us know what you're wearing. And we're going to get started with this conversation very soon. Okay, so let's get this started. I am going to bring in Elliot, and I am going to ask some questions, as I tend to do, and it will be exciting to hear his answers. So let's bring him on in. Hello, Elliot.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation to this discussion.
Of course. Kind of like talking to enthusiasts of any kind, really. It's also our first time like meeting, discussing, talking anything. So good to meet you.
What better an opportunity than to do it in a live setting for other people to watch?
Yeah, of
But we have
course.
chatted a little bit online, but it is great to interact sort of face to face in this environment. So that's awesome. Like I was saying when we were introducing at the top of the live stream, I'm very impressed with your knowledge, your taste, and I want to ask you some questions about the overlap between those who are enthusiasts of haute couture, to apparel, to putting oneself together, and having perfume integrated into that idiom. I would be very interested in your thoughts on that. So, my first question to you, and this is one that I've been quite curious because I am only in the periphery of those who have the enthusiasm that you do with fashion. Do you find that within your milieu there is a lot of enthusiasm for perfume as you do, or do you find that it's sort of half and half? Or
I'd say that's a good question. I think it's split. It really depends. I think it actually kind of differentiates those who are really like genuinely interested in not just fashion, but kind of like an entire oh, like aesthetic lifestyle, almost like an all-encompassing kind of like view of what their life is like and should be, versus those who are just interested in putting clothes on. And I think that has, other connotations and, things that you can pull out of it as well. Someone who's, just interested in clothing, you kind of have to question, like, why are you only interested in clothing, and why is your mattress on the floor, and you have a folding chair, or why do you smell really bad? But I would say that there's definitely a humongous overlap, right? A lot of the people who care about how they present, care about the things that they wear, especially people who care about secondhand and vintage, like they're going to also care about how they present themselves olfactorily. Yeah, that's the word, right?
olfactorily.
Yeah, there you go. There definitely is a large overlap, and I think it's just another way to either add to the presentation that you're already giving to others, or kind of create like a conversation, a contrast with it, or I don't know, elevate it. That's how I see it, at least.
That's actually something that I've thought about. Say, for example, somebody who appreciates vintage as far as a particular time period or style. How many of those are willing to go all the way and get into the vintage perfumes of that era as well? And I thought to myself, for those who are really committed, do they stop short of getting into the perfumes, say, of the 30s or 40s, or even somebody who might be enthusiastic about the 70s? Because I just I don't know, like, if I would if somebody was really wanting to have that authenticity, and then they would wear, I don't know, a very modern release, it would almost seem like a bit dissonant, or anachronistic, if you will, if they were wearing something very modern. Do you like? My question for you is that do you kind of have fun, coinciding the particular perfumes from a time period with, if you're going for a vintage look?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I personally, I do not know enough about like the vintage perfume world, and I know you certainly do. This is, I'd say my realm is really in like like current times, like niche perfumery, and a lot of those have like vintage feels. I would say
Oh yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
perfume,
totally.
you know, a lot of people love like referencing the sense from back then. I know a lot of aroma chemicals and stuff have changed, of course, but like there's still like this like a vintage feel is almost what you can talk about when with these things.
Right.
But that is, I do wonder. I know that it can be very difficult to find certain, like older releases of colognes, perfumes, etc. And I think it can be very difficult to also find, like a 1940s like piece of clothing that's in good condition would probably be just as difficult to find a fragrance that hasn't, completely lost itself on its way over the last 80 years. I don't know too many people who kind of overlap. I know either one or the other, but that would be perhaps interesting. But also, you need something to ground yourself in modern times. Other like it almost feels like cosplay if you're like
Right.
so seriously grounded in like the 1940s or 50s or
Eh,
something.
yeah, indeed. No, I was thinking that too. Like it would be
Mm,
sort of a form of cosplay if you were to uh, make it authentic down to the very minutia of what somebody would be doing in that time period. But I guess finding something that would harken back to that time period, but still be, as you said, grounded in the present, but
mm,
having echoes of the past, which there's a lot of perfumes like that that I'm really fond of, that they're able to bridge the past with the present. And perhaps those would be good in those instances.
I think that's like
Yeah, go ahead.
that is very similar to like the way that like a lot of like I guess traditional menswear like trends work as well, right? You have like the 19 like the tailoring of like certain decades, like you get these like coming back, right? And the certain like trends of like the decades of perfumery, like they come back, and you're able to like reference them with more modern like pieces and more modern fragrances. So like I own 1940s pants, but I wear them with my 1980s and 90s Armani clothing. And it doesn't look out of place, but if you were to know like the actual like labels and the fabrics and the construction, and you were to look inside, you'd be like, these are two totally different things. I think that's a little bit part of it. I don't know exactly where that thought was leading to, but there are these like cyclical natures that I find very interesting.
Well, I think that's the fun of it too, is you can challenge yourself to see what sort of elements in an ensemble that you can put together that somehow work in spite of whatever zeitgeist from whence they
Mm,
came, and then they somehow come together. And I guess you could do that with whatever fragrance that you're wearing that somehow just seems to work with it.
mm,
um, but let's say we're talking about something not so much in terms of looking at matching something with the time period, but just matching a fragrance with whatever you're wearing in general. I'd love to pick your brain and hear, how what that process is when you have sort of a concept in mind of what you're going to put together for yourself to go out. How,
mm.
what is your process of choosing a fragrance to complement what you're wearing?
Hmm. I think a lot of it has to do with setting. Like, where am I going? What am I doing for this outfit, for this, yeah, for this day, really? If it's a full day, if I'm going to the office, then it's always going to be something that is tame. I'm never going to be like, it's an office thing. Everyone kind of knows the idea of like an office fragrance, something that's inoffensive, and it's usually similar with my outfits. If I was going to the office, something that is just enough me that but it's not going to upset managers or anything like that. But the more fun stuff is definitely like on the weekends or in the evenings, right? If I'm going to a bar, it depends on the kind of bar. If I'm going to like a dive bar and it's maybe I'm like wearing like an all black outfit, something sleeker, something more minimalistic, then I would try to find something that's I guess it's hard to describe. It just feels like it goes with that outfit, something that is like perhaps darker and more mysterious, that makes you kind of like it has a certain question mark to it, where you're like, what is going on here? I don't really know. To the fragrance, it is. And if I'm going on like a date or something, it would be completely different. Once again, depending on where the date is, and I guess what my opinion is of the person I'm going on a date with. But it's like, like, what do I think that they would like, or what do I think that I would like to present myself as to them? It's a bit of a fake. I'm kind of like putting on a presentation, but it's all part of life, right? You're trying to present yourself as something every day.
Well, yeah, because you're selling yourself in a way. It's sort of like going on a job interview, so to speak. A little bit different, in that you don't have to negotiate salary, but but you have to still figure out what is going to be appropriate in that situation based on who is the prospective, if you will.
Yes.
Knowing if they tend to be more extroverted, maybe you would be considering something that would have more of a gregarious feel to it. But if somebody seems to be a bit more introverted, to err on the side of caution, I would imagine, and choose something a little bit more conservative, and then ease into that as you get to know the person. So yeah, I
Absolutely.
like that whole concept of understanding who you're going to be interacting with and deciding what's going to fit, so that you make the best impression possible. It's a very
Yeah.
cool sort of topic within itself. I mean, you could just have a whole conversation based on that. Um, so there's dates, and then there's friends. I'm sure with friends you can be a little bit more. You can just anything goes, right?
Yeah.
Do you find that your friends are a lot more um, open-minded about your perfumes and fragrances, or are they kind of like, oh, that's a little bizarre?
It totally depends. I would
Yeah,
say most of my friends, I met most of my friends in school at the University of Chicago, most of them. And so they're not
yeah,
actually like fashion people. They're not really fragrance people. They're just like friends. They're in finance or in product management or whatever. They're normal people that like I sometimes am like they care about how they present and they're like normal, but they're not like diving into it as a hobby in the same way. So
right.
I love kind of like introducing them to these new things. My closest friend in Chicago, I moved away, but every single time I would like try a new fragrance, I would be like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Usually, he would just smell it and go like, "That's nice," and he would be like, "Okay, cool." It's like he doesn't need to have a strong opinion, but I do feel like I can wear mostly anything around them, and I also am. I wouldn't say my taste in general is particularly out there, complex. It's a lot of things that I think would smell like generally nice to most people. I'm not trying to find the nichest or scariest or most stringent like combinations of notes or anything like that. I'm just smelling what I think smells nice and what I want to smell like, which generally speaking, I think is quite um, similar for everyone else, if not a bit like niche in the sense that not as many people have heard of it, just because
Right,
I
right.
like exploring new things and smaller brands and supporting them. So that's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that for somebody to say that what they're smelling is nice, that's worth its weight in gold. And
Oh,
you
for
don't have to
sure.
have them like elaborate, like, oh, it reminds me of, walking on the Mediterranean coast or something like
It's
that.
it.
Like this, as long as they approve of it, that's more than enough for me.
The
So
best is when I would walk into a room, like we're like let's say we're both getting ready to like go out to like a bar or a dinner or something with other friends because we were roommates, right? And I would like he would be like ready in the living room, and I would just walk in, and he without me saying anything, he's like, "Oh, you smell nice." I'm like, "That's it. That's great." I didn't have to say anything. The waft itself was the conversation there.
yes, it's the power of sillage. It's the power of that the way that the fragrance throws itself, and you get that positive response. It's worth it because we know, as fragrance enthusiasts, whether we're somebody who's a fragrance enthusiast in addition to something else that that is your passion, like yourself, or people who are just pathological fragrance enthusiasts like myself. Just for somebody, with most of the world, they only have one or two fragrances at most, for them to say that, it just that is,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, that's really worth it. And for all this talk of compliments, it's like you don't get them as often as people in the,
No.
within the content creation. It's like,
That's
it's not.
that's what I find very interesting about, like, fragrance content creation. People like, there's a lot of I won't, like, belabor the point of, like, these, like, fragrances that are supposed to, like, get you women or, do or like, make people, like, turn their head and go, "What are you wearing?" Or, these things don't really happen in real life. The most you'll get is someone on the subway, like, sniff, like, give, like, a little, like, like, half smirk and then, like, turn around. Like, that's about as much as you're gonna get.
Yeah,
No.
and if anything more than that, it's like coworkers or, as you
Yes,
said,
people who know you,
friends.
yeah.
Yeah.
A
It's
stranger walking by in the city is never like, that's such a bizarre experience, and if that happened, I will be sure to let you know, okay, and what I was wearing.
the only times that really has happened is when it's been, surprise, surprise, another fragrance
Yes,
enthusiast. Somebody who's really into it will ask, but the average person, usually is guarded as far as that, or they just don't feel it's necessary to say anything. They just kind of appreciate it quietly and keep it to themselves. So
exactly.
yeah, I've just found that to always be really amusing, that there's so much emphasis on whether or not you get compliments, when in reality you can't really tally up compliments. Like these people who claim to do so, I think that they're just bullshitting people. I really do. Like whole videos about a particular fragrance where they say like, this gets me the most compliments, and it's like, the most compliments, like, so
You
wait,
mean
it
one?
was so it was the one fragrance that probably gave you a compliment in the past 3 months, then? Is that what you mean? And then they'll go on and they'll say, like, yeah, this has given me at least 20 compliments in the past week. And it's like, no, no, that's not how the world works. It's like,
Kind of
unless you're
not.
hanging out with a bunch of nerds like that, are also into fragrance as much as you. So it's funny. We have Duncan here. Hi, scent of the day. Zaharoff Black Rose is your scent of the day. Thank you very much. We have 16 people tuned in. We have a pretty dormant chat, yet we have 16 people who are tuned in live. So don't be afraid to drop a note and say hi or ask a question. It would be lovely to hear from some of you. I do know that I have a lot of lurkers. I'm sure you're kind of familiar with that too, Elliot, doing content creation. It's like you have a lot of people who are viewing or watching and very few people who are speaking
Interact.
up, but that's
Yes.
fine. That's fine. Some of them might just be shy. Um, so let's move on to another question that I had. So, do you ever consider one of your fragrances in terms? I don't know if you have synesthesia of any type, but do you ever think like, well, I'm wearing these certain colors. This particular fragrance evokes that sort of color or tint or hue. Do you operate that way? If there's nothing wrong with it if you don't, but
I
I was just curious.
I wouldn't say I definitely don't have synesthesia. I'm not like
Okay.
smelling something and then like having like, have you seen Ratatouille, like the movie? Like I reference
Yes.
the scene a lot where he like takes a bite of the strawberry and like the reds and the whatever pop up, and he
Yeah.
takes a bite of the cheese and the yellows pop up, and he takes a bite of both at the same time and it all goes crazy. That's not my life ever. But I think like I said, when it's like when you're picking something for an outfit or for a person or for an event, there is like a feeling associated with it, a feeling of like either like comfort or warmth or like a cooler feeling, or these like images that it evokes basically, and sometimes the images are completely determined by the ad copy of said fragrance, and that's okay, I understand that. But sometimes it's also, for me, images of just memories I've had with them, and an image alone, that's close enough to colors and other things. If I smell something and it reminds me of Cape Cod, then it's like, okay, then I'm imagining the same like pastel color palette of what I think of when I think of Cape Cod, and that works alongside whichever outfit I'm going with, be it these light blue linens and pinks or whatever, right? Does that make sense?
The Nantucket Red.
Yeah, well,
Vineyard Vines. I'm not far from Cape Cod. I'm here in Massachusetts. So how often do you visit the Cape? You seem familiar?
I love the Cape. I've been going every summer since I was born, except for the one summer I started my full-time job 2 years ago.
Oh,
But
that's awesome.
yeah, my
Where,
grandparents have a very small 2-bed, 1-bath condo. They've owned it since the 90s in West Yarmouth. So we
oh,
go
of
there.
course I know West Yarmouth. That's awesome. I have a soft spot for Cape Cod. I grew up in the South Shore of
Mm,
Massachusetts, not far from Plymouth, so Cape
yeah,
Cod was
really
a
not far at all.
hop, skip, and a jump. So many visits to the Cape. Um, yeah, I have actually a bit of synesthesia, so I always ask other people if they do. which,
What
ju-
what
which
what is it? What is it necessarily for you? Can you explain your experience with it?
so most of the time I'm able to taste when I'm able to see color when I taste and smell. So there's a lot of I try to temper that though in my writing because sometimes I think the color isn't really relevant to the review. But occasionally when I feel like it does coincide with my description or assessment of a fragrance, it will come out. But that's yeah, taste and smell. So the basically the olfactory bulb somehow makes me see certain colors at most of the time.
Mm,
Some scents don't really elicit it, but then others do. Yeah.
very
Um,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. It's always been like that. And when I was younger, I thought it was just I was kind of I don't know, just being very imaginative. And then I realized like I didn't really control it. It just that's what happens. So Deluxe Lex says, hello, gentlemen. Hello back to you. Famous YouTuber. Woman's fragrances. Woman's fragrances gets me the most compliments from woman. Makes perfect sense. Black Orchid, particularly. And Philippe Alex, I get compliments mainly from people who know me and know that I'm into fragrances. Lost Scents, Scent of the Day, and Teus. Very nice. Sort of in a similar time period to what I'm wearing this evening, the Jill Sander that I have right here. Do you have a scent of the evening?
Yeah, I mean, I just got out of the shower before I hopped on here. I was like, I'll put something on because it's the right thing to do. But it's Tableau Parisien by
Oh,
Orme.
I'm going to do a bit of a zoom so we can see that bottle. Or May Paris Tableau Parisien. I love those bottles.
Their bottles are so beautiful. It's like Art Deco inspired. I mean, uh, presentation does matter. I will say that, and especially when you're trying to sell something.
For
But
sure.
like a Michelin star chef cares very much about the presentation of the dish just as much as the flavors involved within it. And the presentation can, in fact, change the way you experience those flavors. And I'm sure having a nice bottle with a nice sprayer changes the way I experience the atomizer, not sprayer. And changes the way you experience a fragrance. So it's I think it's a bit feminine, honestly. It's at the heart of it is tuberose, which is historically like a female leaning floral, but it's got a lot of these like spices and a bit of tobacco, a bit of vanilla. Um, and it's the only tuberose that I've ever smelled that I was like, I could put this on, and even if it does smell kind of like an old Parisian lady, like maybe like I put it on and I envision like someone in Paris in their minks, and it's definitely like an older woman, but the smell is I don't know, it still hits like this kind of like adult vibe that I try to give off sometimes, even though I
Tell
am
us
only
how you. How old are you?
24.
24.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Very cool. An old gent here. So most folks know how old I am. I'm 46. So I'm a Gen X. I'm a late Gen X. I actually, some people say Zennial because I'm
That
at the more tail end.
I've never heard of this little corner of
Apparently, those born between 78 and 1981 are Zennials, and then
Interesting.
82 onward are not that there's like some sort of like hard and fast like sort of like delineation in generations.
Yeah.
There's always like debates as to when they begin and end. So how did you discover Ormei, particularly Tableau Parisien?
I was in Chicago. Let me make sure that this is correct. I believe, yeah. So, in Chicago, we have Murs Apothecary, which is a
Yes.
wonderful very, very old apothecary. It's like since like 1856 or something. I
Yeah.
want to say, maybe could be making up that. It's in the 1800s though.
I know it's
And
in
they,
the like mid 1800s. Yeah. Yeah.
and they just have a wonderful like niche perfumery scent counter. But you need to be helped by someone, so they don't like allow you to just like spray whatever you want and leave, which is fine. But the people there, I kind of like went a couple of times, even though it was far away from the neighborhood I lived in. And they introduced me to a lot of different brands that I had just kind of heard of, or marked on different like platforms that I want to try and smell, just because I had seen other people I respected online talk about them. Or May was one of those brands, and I was like, let me smell a couple of these. I tried a few. I own 2 of their fragrances. I had 3, but I got rid of one of them. And then it was great. They're like I think they say they're like all natural ingredients, but I don't know what really any of this kind of means. I don't get into the chemistry of it all, but I smelled them. They smelled great. The presentation was beautiful. And this one in particular, I was very fond of. I messaged them on Instagram saying like, I would love to like, not, promote this, but like, just say like put on my Instagram story or make a post with it mentioned in it. And they were like, sure, we'll send you over a bottle. So that's how I got it. After, trying it, smelling it on myself with the dry down and everything.
So, may I ask, what was the one that you decided that didn't resonate with you and you wanted to let go?
I well, I got it. I also got it sent to me by the brand, but it was one I had not tried before. They came
Okay.
out with some extracts recently,
Okay.
and one of their fragrances is called Toy Toy Toy. It's like about like it's almost like the German version of break a leg. That's like what Toy 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 means.
Uh,
It's supposed to smell like the original fragrance. Their standard smells really lovely. It's like a light, like kind of like woody vanilla with a little bit of like kind of like a little bit of like varnish or something. It's supposed to smell like the opera when it's empty, almost like these people like performing and practicing, which I really like that concept, and I could understand it when I smelled it. And then they came out with an extrait, and they're like, "Would love to send it to you." I said, "Okay," and I don't know, that one's not for me. Like I smelled it, I was like, I'm gonna try this. And then like I went through the opening and the dry down, and it just never really came off my skin either. And I just wasn't feeling it. So I gave it to my mom, and
and
she did with it
she
whatever she pleased. I didn't ask what she I didn't ask for her opinion. It was kind of like a drop off, and like it'll be fine. If she wants to keep it, it's all hers. I give a lot of fragrances to my sis. I get a lot for free, I must add. So I give them a lot of them to like my sister and my mom as gifts. And sometimes they really like them, and sometimes I don't know. Maybe they list them on eBay. I don't ask what they do with it.
It's up to them at that point, right?
Yeah,
They
it kind
just
of is.
do whatever they want. Beautiful bottles, though.
For sure.
What do the extrait bottles look like? Are they sort of similar with the?
For the Toy 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 extrait bottle is very similar. It has like a like they all have like these like wooden pieces up top, different shapes for each one of their
Yeah, that's
different fragrances.
yeah, yeah.
It's the same, like it's like like a cube with like a
Kind of,
hole in it almost.
right, like kind of like a link kind of looking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah, like a chain link.
yeah.
And it kind of looks very similar, but with a slightly different label on it. But they're all these really nice, like I don't know, cylindrical bottles with like the like cut glass. It's pretty beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. I that's what I was really struck with when I first saw the brand. What is the third one? What's the third one that you did this, which is now the second? Is that the one that is lavender Le Passant?
Hmm.
Yeah, I heard some good things about Le Passant. Yeah.
So this one this was the first one I ever owned from them, and I purchased this at Murr's Apothecary I purchased it with my own money this
Their
time.
own money, not
Yes.
not a promotional. Yeah.
No, no. But this one, I kind of went into, this is dangerous and I should never really do this, but I went into MERS knowing that I kind of wanted something. Like I was like, I'm going to come out today with something. I have a little bit of extra money. I'm going to do something silly. And I was probably the only person there on that day for whatever reason, or for that hour I was there, and I was just chatting a long time with the sales associate. And I don't know if sales associate sounds wrong. It was just a girl, you know. She was very sweet, and she very knowledgeable, and she was going through all of them. I forget which other ones I tried that day, but this one really, really stuck with me. I love lavender. Cape Cod has a lavender farm that I'm like very familiar with. The smell of it, it's so calming. I used to spray like lavender pillow spray on my bed, or on my pillows before I went to bed. I still do, actually. It's just so nice. And this one is a good mixture of lavender and vanilla and maybe some other things, but really it doesn't need to be more than that. And it just, it makes me feel like under like a nice warm blanket. There's like cookies in the oven, like, you know, there's no worries out there. That's what it feels like to me, at least.
It's very reassuring.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like it is inspired by Caron Polonum from Caron, which I love, and that's one of my bedtime scents. But I have not tried it yet. I haven't tried anything from this house, but I'm really intrigued. I do not have a retailer like Mertz Apothecary who is actually carrying it in my area, but I should try to get some samples. That's the one that I heard the most about, the Le Passant, because it is just a very well done lavender, a cozy lavender. Very nice, very nice.
Absolutely.
I want to remind folks to hit the like. We currently are at, let's see, 13 likes. We have 17 people tuned in. Let's try to bring that up to 20 likes. If you haven't already liked the stream, please be sure to do so. Not to sound like a broken record, but it really does help make the content visible. This is how the algorithms work. We're at the mercy of the algorithms. So anything that you can do as a viewer and a supporter of this channel and this content, if you can like the stream, it will really help us out. Thank you so much. And I'm going to do a tally because I'm going to be expecting people to start doing it. That's still at 13, but we have 18 people tuned in. So it's about 5 or so at least that I could get. Just do me a solid here, folks. Great to see you, Pat Lester. I just wanted to mention that earlier. So, what is your usual, so you kind of gleaned on this a little bit, but what is your usual method of discovering new fragrances? Would you say that it is seeking them out through visiting certain shops and retailers, or do you find yourself doing a lot of research online and figuring out what's out there?
It's a mixture of everything. My favorite way is to just go to a store and smell. So in person is the most important, and also it allows me to at least leave that day usually with a free full sample, because I'll spray something on myself and then like let it linger, get the full dry down with it. Right. Yeah, a full test drive, and it's free. But there's a great store in Williamsburg called Stell. They have so many amazing brands, and I would like to think I've like befriended one of their employees, and she handed me like an extra sample from one of the events they had, and every time I'm there I chat with her a bit about what she feels like is like the new brand that they're interested in, and they've met a lot of the perfumers and the owners of the brands that are coming in, which feels kind of special. They get like a feeling of almost like how honest are some of these people. There's a lot of money to be had in fragrance, and it's very clear sometimes that there's a little bit of like a lack of soul in what's going in, and right. I don't know if you can necessarily feel that in the smell, but like it is important to like the kind of brand that you want to I don't know, what is it, like you want to support, right?
Patronize.
Is patronize really the word there? That doesn't sound right.
I don't know, because patronize has multiple denotations too, because sometimes patronize can be a negative thing, that you want to support, or I know there's a better word. I think you and I are both trying to find a better word for that.
Patronize does work. I've looked it up.
Yeah, it does kind of work, but you don't want to be patronizing, but you can
Yeah.
patronize. I find still to be that is just the aesthetic of the store and the business is beautiful to me.
Yes. The way they present all of them
Yes,
together.
really striking. Not really quite like any other perfume retailer. Really, they're experts, I would say, in curating a great selection of fragrances for their store. I mean, just looking at some of what they carry, they do want to hone in on some of the modern independent houses and niche houses that are imparting creativity and artistry,
Mm,
and not just trying to make a quick buck, you know.
yeah.
I mean, I don't want to start getting cynical, although my viewers are used to hearing me get cynical about the perfume industry. There are definitely a lot of niche houses that they don't really, once you actually try them, or you take a good look at the, you know, the whole premise behind the brand, you think to yourself, like, this isn't really niche, you know?
Yeah.
And I think
Or
that's
private equity backing in general kind of has
it.
a very negative connotation.
Yeah, you're fully aware of that. Yeah, not many people are aware that these so-called niche houses, they involve venture capital and not really much in the way of like creative direction that is honorable or admirable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Not to
them.
say that they can't make a good scent though. I will add that, which is
That's
interesting.
true. Yeah, if they get, you know, the right perfumers in, you know, in spite of whatever the agenda is of that particular house or brand, you know, they need
Mm,
a really good perfumer to make some good creations for them. But
exactly.
it's always funny when they have like a line up and you know that they have like those, you know, those ones that are meant to sell. And it's like basically just like their version of like a Tom Ford or their version of like a pretty, you know, proven to be successful kind of trope and perfume.
Mm,
You know, like their gourmand and their leather and their, you know, the sometimes they'll, you think of some of the trends like cherry, you know, they'll have their version of a cherry fragrance. They'll have their version of, I don't know, like a candy floss fragrance. Those are the ones that they're trying to, you know, they're trying to push units. And then
mhm.
there'll be like a gem in the rough, right? You'll have
Yes.
like maybe like 5 or 6 in the house, and some of them are like, you know, I see what they're trying to do with those. And then there'll be that one where it's like, okay, yeah, I appreciate that being that adventurous and taking a risk to release something that may not necessarily be their big seller, but the one that's
Right.
really a standout, right?
But
Right.
those are fewer and far between with these houses. Meanwhile, there are ones that do feel like artistry, like they're like imperfect creations that are like kind of almost they almost feel like there was a mad scientist doing some stuff in here, and I really like what was happening.
Yeah. Sometimes it's kind of cool when, you know, a perfumer or perfume house, they'll just sell a brief that just like was rejected, or just like this incomplete kind of like idea, and they're just have fun with it, release it as a perfume and see how it does. Sometimes that happens too, like where it's
Mm,
like what you're getting is actually a sketch, and then the sketch is just sort of like just so happens to be brilliant, you know, and may have not have ever intended to be commercially released, but they decide, here you go, here you can have this for, you know, whatever cost, and then they'll choose that, they'll release that. That happens a lot, actually. I've learned of that recently, where it's like what you're smelling is just sort of like a rough idea that has come to life, you know.
huh.
Yeah, no, it happens a lot. It happens a lot with like you know, with these newer independent houses, you know, they'll have like their brand ambassador and their whole aesthetic, and then 3 or 4 fragrances, and yeah. and you'll have like some really good perfumers backing it, but it's not something that they sat down and deliberated for hours and days. It's kind of like already on the shelf.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it's kind of fun, interesting when you think of it that way. But getting back to still, there's one perfumer, and her fragrances are sold there. I don't know if you tried them, but she's wonderful. Marie Pierre Blanchet. She does Miskio. You should try out. Have you?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Miss Keo, they follow me on TikTok and on Instagram, and every
yeah.
once in a while I'll be I I feel like I have kind of reached out and been like, I would love to, try. Yeah. I'm very like coy when I like do these things. I'm like, I would love to like share these things with my followers. And it's like not like I don't need them, but it's kind of I've tried this. I've tried what is it? Foy, Feuill,
Oh, for you,
or Few.
for
I
you.
should be able to speak French, but
It's a hard one to say, for you.
Few.
Yeah, that one's
And
beautiful.
épice, like épice,
Épice, épice.
épice.
Woo! I don't want to get. Yeah, that was pretty hot on the mic. Épice.
Yeah,
That's another lovely one. And
pistil,
that,
broom. These like
yeah.
I've tried most of them. I haven't found one that I didn't particularly love. Honestly, I haven't tried all of them
Oh,
on my skin just yet. But like from the testers, I've always been just like these these feel just well, I don't know, just like thought out, well constructed, as they're on their own.
very conceptual, but conceptual in a way that I like, because it's not overly conceptual. She does still leave it somewhat open ended for the wearer. Like you were mentioning, like ad copies, and sometimes ad copies leave little to the imagination. They're just telling you
Mm,
everything about what the fragrance is supposed to be and the experience that you're supposed to have. And I've mentioned this before to my folks, that I try to avoid even reading it until long after I've established sort of like a connection with the fragrance, because I almost don't want to sully it with their with their idea of what it's supposed to give to the wearer. But what I
mm.
like about Marie, the perfumer from Miskio, is she does kind of give you sort of like she sets the scene, but then she allows you to kind of fill in sort of the rest of the story through your own experience with the fragrance. And one of the things that I love about perfume, and she does this with a plum for whatever reason, she has this talent, is she's able to impart this raw naturalism into her perfume in a way that I think may be hard to come by in more mainstream commercial perfumery, because normies, they have a difficult time with things actually smelling like nature. They want like sort of like, a lot of the time they want like a Disney version of nature. But with her, it's like the rawness, like the aspects of nature that may not be conventionally beautiful, but they are beautiful. And I
I
love that she's
really,
able to
I
do
I
that.
really like
Yeah.
that description as well. That's I think that's oftentimes what I am looking for. Sometimes though is this like feeling of just like I want to smell like I'm like stepping outside in a like like this is a very like typical like ad copy probably. It's like you're on the forest floor and it's damp and it's there's like the petrichor or whatever. It's just rain. But they always miss something. It's not really that. There are these kind of like off weird like smells coming from dirt or from
Yes.
flowers or anything that it does feel very difficult to emulate the like imperfections correctly.
Right, right. I think that is a big challenge for perfumers, because what they want to aim for is giving that impression without it necessarily being so literal that it may be more an object of art rather than something that you can actually wear in public, because that there's that fine line between something kind of evoking and then actually a literal interpretation of like loam and fermentation of the earth and plants, which maybe I would be bold enough to wear, given the circumstance, depending upon the circumstance. But I've even experienced some perfumers who go like too far, and it's like, I don't think I can wear this publicly because it really literally does smell like mulch. And I don't know if mulch really works well as an accord in a perfume, but if you have sort of like this, like you're like if a perfumer can kind of almost go there, but they don't go there 100%, where it's just sort of like a back note. Do you know what I mean? Where it's kind of like it's like
Mm.
kind of behind there. It's not like right out front. Then that's what's really incredible. Like being able to just put a little bit in there without too much. I think that's really brilliant. We have
Yeah.
some folks who have tuned in here. My good friend Alex, great to see you. His perfume, his scent of the day, rather, Aritza Legan, Gentry Jockey Club. That's one I haven't tried from Aritza Legan, but I love a number of them. Have you ever tried anything, Elliot, from Aritza Legan?
I,
Do be
I
sure
have
to make
heard
it a.
of uh, I have heard of them.
It is a resurrected house. I love the resurrected houses because what they do is they resurrect a whole brand that may have been out of commission for decades and decades. In this case, it was. Oof, I think that they went out of business maybe in the 30s or 40s, but they resurrected this house and their formulas. Some of them are actually the original formulas. Others are inspired by the original formulas. Still, others are new creations, but they're very much in the spirit of that time period. But they still manage to be, for the most part, like they still have a little bit of modernism to them that you could still wear them and people can,
Huh.
people will not think that you're, not that that makes any difference because I wear things from, that vintages actually from 80 or more years ago. But you can definitely wear them out and people will not think that, you're wearing something dated. I don't know. Maybe they will. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too optimistic about
But but
humanity,
there is
but
such an there must be such like a certain elegance that comes with like the feeling of like a dated like a
oh yeah.
dated fragrance,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, of course,
Mm.
because what you're if you find a vintage that is well preserved, which I've mentioned a multitude of times on Effluvium and elsewhere, is not as easy as people might think. It might lead you to think if they're vintage enthusiasts. So it's a lot of heartache. You might find something that's turned a great deal, but if you find one, and it is possible because I have plenty of them. I've shared them a lot on Instagram or wherever.
Mm.
Um, yeah, if you find an intact one, a one that has really remained intact, you are experiencing the way perfume had been in that time period, and there's something remarkable about that because you're getting sort of an impression of what the ether was, if you will, of that time period. It's something that's unique to smell, to the sense of smell, that you can capture that through, it's almost like a way of reliving history other than reading a novel or something from the time period, or looking, do you see what I'm getting with that? It's like a whole other aspect of it. And I think that there is something really sophisticated and dignified and even sexy about it at times, but it has to have the right audience and it has to have somebody with the right kind of appreciation.
Yeah.
But there are going to be some people say, "Oh, that smells like an old lady," or an old man. That's going to happen. Um, but I think that for people who are younger, Gen Z, I think Gen Z are starting to turn more and more to the past, a past that they never known. Because if you think about it, it goes full circle. Like more my generation would probably say like, "Oh, that smells old fashioned," and you want to know why? It's because we were alive when the people who were wearing that as their signature fragrance, they were still alive when we were younger, and we associated with older people. But say somebody in their 20s, those people have passed away. So now
Mm.
you're not really smelling that on people because most of the people who are wearing it have left us. So you're kind of
Mm.
like, you don't have like that reference anymore. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do also respect the commitment to wearing like a fragrance throughout like many periods of your life. Like if you were like I'm sure many like women found their fragrance, I don't know, in the 1960s or 70s and continued wearing the same one for decades, which is,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the way I think about really anything, but I'm also 24, so who the heck knows? But I don't like I would I don't know. I really don't. I think maybe there are clothes that I want to kind of have always, but I don't know if there's fragrances that I think are I don't know, worthy of continuing forever and ever. I would never want to date myself with something like that. I want to be young forever, right?
Yeah, no, I know, I know. I totally get what you're saying with that. And being somebody who has a huge collection of fragrances, I always want to be stimulated with new things all the time. Like I'm not a creature of habit. I've never been. I totally get what you mean, but there's something to be said about people who are committed, right?
Hmm.
Like, and I think that that speaks also with the way things were culturally at the time,
Right.
where um, when you look at the marketplace today, or you look at the marketplace of at least the past 25 years with the advent of the internet, um, the abundance of choices were not really something that existed when you're talking about somebody who came of age in the 50s, 40s,
Hmm.
and 50s. Um, it really, with you were only starting to get kind of like impressions of that by the 60s. So it would make sense, especially people, you think about like people who like they were raised during the Depression, and you think about how scarcity was in their language,
Yeah.
and they didn't want to overdo it and go beyond their means, so they stayed dedicated, and they would have like a very modest wardrobe, and they would have their signature perfume, and that would be the only one they would have. And there's something to be said about that, that lifelong relationship. I find that fascinating, even though
Yeah.
it's so alien to me, but I
It's
still,
also it's also very alien to me. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I kind of understand that. There's just I don't know. There's also a different just way of consumption in general. I talk about this with clothes all the time. I love my like, when I get on my soapbox on even on TikTok, I'm able to. But it's like, you're just there's so many more options, and the options are cheaper and like easier to replace and not as easy to repair on everything, furniture, clothes, probably even fragrances, that it's like we can just keep buying new ones. There's almost no point in owning something for decades, mostly because it won't last that long.
yeah.
It's like sad reality, and I'm an overconsumer. I'm very aware of that. I have way more clothes than I could ever need for a lifetime, but I at least like try to like think critically about like the ones that I am buying, knowing that hopefully their environmental impact or whatever would last long enough.
Just remember to store them properly, and you'd
Oh,
be
always.
surprised, yeah, how long they'll last. And I think that there are certain preservatives. I know that's scary for the chemophobes, preservatives in my perfume, but there are some things that preserve perfume nowadays that enable them to have a much longer shelf life than in the
Mm.
past. So if you have the potential to find a perfume from the 60s that was stored well and still smells great today, imagine how long some of the perfumes that you have today will last.
That's a good
You know,
point.
if they're stored in a cool, dark, dry place, for sure. Um, so we have Alex here. The idea that a fragrance is smelling old is outdated. I can smell the reek of putrefaction around people saying I smell like their grandpa. Ah, hello, my friend, Oris Eris. If only I could be classy enough to have one signature scent in a pared down wardrobe. Yeah, I don't know. There's just something so charming about it, but I could never be that person. Like I've always wanted excess.
I feel
Not
like
that I've.
I almost aspire to that at times, and then I like sit back and I realize that that's just not me. Like when I buy a pair of like very nice jeans, I love denim. I think denim is like a fantastic fabric. It like
Yeah,
it wears with you. You make it your own if you own like nice denim. Um, but I like buy a pair of jeans. I'm like, I can't wait. Like years from now, these are going to be so beautifully faded, and they're going to be like worn in, and they're going to be I'm going to beat them up, and I'm going to wear them wherever. And it's like I have 8 pairs of jeans. Like I only wear these like 20 times a year. These
When
aren't
will
going to
that ever
give up.
happen?
Like, who am I kidding? Even though, like,
Yeah.
the idea, it's like the idea of purchasing the nice thing is that, like, it will last forever. It will become a part of you.
Yeah.
I have so many things that I'm almost incapable of doing that. And I think it's very similar with fragrance. I would love to, like, walk in a room and someone just smell it and be like, that Elliot's here. But no, because I have, 50 different ones that I could put on at any point in time. And I can't imagine a signature scent. What does that even mean? I don't think.
I know that it would be so restrictive for me too. I guess I'm going to rely on people saying, "Oh, I smell something. It must be Joseph." Like whatever it is. It's so we're going to do a very quick intermission, and we're going to be right back. And in the second hour, we're going to be talking about your perfumes besides the one you already shared from Orme. We'll be back in a moment, folks. And we're back. And I just want to remind folks that the likes are important. And right now I see 15, and I've seen more than 15 people tuned in over the course of this live stream. So please, if you'd be so kind to hit the like, let's try to get to at least 20 in the next couple of minutes. I'm telling you, folks, this is part of the reason why I'm going to be retiring this live stream podcast, is because I need to make sure that I have a proper audience, which is why I'm going to be looking at Substack in the future. But while I'm still here, it would be so helpful if those of you who are supportive of what I do and the conversations that I have with my guests, if you could contribute at minimum by just hitting that like button right now. We're at 16. That is splendid. Let's try to get some more in. Let's try to hit 20, and let's hopefully hit 40 within an hour by the end of this live stream. Your contribution is greatly appreciated. Lately, I haven't been advertising it too much, but Buy Me a Coffee is still there. You can still buy me a coffee. You can buy me 6 of them for a sample pack that I can send to you. 12 of them will give you a 4-bottle grab bag plus a sample pack. US only, please. And visit the link that is in the pinned comment, buymeacoffee.com/Joseph Kolb P. And I'm going to share a comment from Nick just before we left for the intermission. The classic pieces in my wardrobe, such as sports jackets, blazers, knitwear, and coats, are just the same as my favorite fragrances. They get very similar levels of usage. Chambray is better than denim, according to Nick S. And supply and demand. Hello, scent of the day. Frederic Mal Monsieur, my newest buy. All right, we're going to bring in Elliot again. And now it is time, Elliot, for you to share some of your favorites, or you can share all of them. Depends on how many you have. I don't know if you can do. How many do you have? I'm going to nerd out here. How many fragrances do you have in your collection?
Are we talking like full bottles? If we're
full bottles, we'll start with full bottles.
Probably 30. That seems like a correct number.
And I think that's a decent number because that's still way more than the average person. So you are a fragrance enthusiast if you have 30. You don't have to share all of them. You can share those.
It's 39.
39. Oh, a little bit more. Okay, that's good too. So we don't have to go through all 39 of them. Well, we went through one of them, so there's 38 left.
Yes. Yes. We've been through 2 now. We've been through both of these. Right here.
That's true. I kept on saying 1, or you did 2 of them. That's right.
Exactly.
All right, 37. Let's go. Get started.
No,
No,
I
you don't have to. We'll just select some of your the ones for which you're most fond.
sure, sure. Another one that I found at where was I? At Mer's Apothecary. I was with friends. We had a day off from work. Was Shukran by Meo Fushuni. I hope I'm saying either of those things right. This is just a really simple, kind of like earthy ground mint. And that's really it. It's mostly a like summer kind of like almost in like spring scent for the most part. I don't think it's like it just doesn't like doesn't do anything in the cold, honestly. But it is so it's just so honest and it's mint. I love that. I love a mint fragrance. I always like we were always growing mint in my backyard as a kid. And we always like I don't know, you put it in a salad, you put it in a dish. It's it's in your hands. It kind of like that scent like gets like ingrained into your skin for the next like hour or two. And that's really what it smells like to me. And I tested a bunch of them at Mers with friends. With being with friends was a bad idea because friends love when you spend money. So we tried a few different ones. I was looking for really like a summary kind of. I didn't have a lot back then, like a little over a year, like probably a year and a bit ago. But it really, I don't know. I smelled it and immediately it was just so simple and so easy to understand, but also so like beautiful and like memorable that I ended up choosing it. That was
Now,
that. I don't know.
now, can you tell us again the name? I'm going to
Yes,
put it
it's
into the chat.
Tu Nota di Viaggio Shukran.
Tu nota di Viaggio Shukran. Okay. I think I have it right here.
Yes. It's
And I'm going to put that in the chat for those who.
I'm gonna look
All right.
this up because I don't want to be wrong. But shukran, it's like it's a phrase that you use to like show like thankfulness or appreciation to someone in Arabic, I believe. So I don't know exactly the story behind it, but it's a lovely brand that I've spelled many things from, and yeah, like I can just immediately I can put it to my nose and just all of the like memories of like being in the kitchen or being outside in the summer kind of like come back a little bit. That was nice.
I
And
do enjoy mint in perfume for sure. I like the way mint is used with geranium and geranium Paul Monsieur by Frederic Malle, and there are a few others where I do appreciate mint. L'Anarchiste from Calonne, lovely mint in that. I should give that a try. Apparently, according to Oris Eris, that is one of the top sellers at the niche perfume shop in Portland, Oregon. Um, so mint. Who would have thought? Jimbo here. Hello, JJ. Loving the Peaky Blinders look. I always knew you were a dangerous man. Very well then, Jimbo. Great to see you. What's next for you? I'm just gonna have you keep on sharing and sharing until you run out of
sure,
messages.
sure. This is it's not maybe not like interesting, but
Don't worry about it. No
the
judgment here. No,
first
everything is
perfume
nice.
or fragrance I ever purchased was By the Fireplace by
Okay.
Margiela. This is
No, no, no.
supremely popular. I'm sure it's like popularity almost like negates its, I don't know, like desirability from a lot of people. But I probably was like 16 or 17 when I smelled it at a Sephora. I mean, I was 16. I probably had like $200 to my name. And I saw that it was $100. I was like, wow, that's so expensive. But it smells really nice. It kind of evokes what it wants to evoke. It's By the Fireplace. It's a little bit, it's just very like sweet and woody, and like not really smoky, but like I don't know, like this like thought of like the sweetness and smokiness of a fire, not the actual smokiness, because that would be
Yeah.
too much for probably like a humongous selling or fragrance. But
Yeah. There's some out there that are that smoky and they're very niche.
yes, I've smelled some where the smoke is like wow, like
Yeah.
the alarm could go off right now.
Right. Like yeah, that you need the fire, police, fire, ambulance right now. There's a lot of burnt
Oh,
down houses. There's one that smells like it seriously smells like if you pass a structure, a house, and yeah, it's
I
kind of
smelled once. Oh my gosh, what was it? It was like T-Rex by Zoologist, I want to say. They had it at, I was with some friend at Scent Bar, which is like to me, like an actual headache to go into. I'm not sure if you've ever been to Scent Bar in New York, or they have a few of them, but it's just like they've sprayed so much in there, and there's a line to get in every time.
yeah.
So you feel the need to purchase something because you've spent like time in line and there's people waiting for
You're
you.
right. You
You
don't want to feel like
don't.
it's been a waste, trying to get in there. You have to let it
Thankfully,
sit.
I was with just friends who were on their own purchasing journey. I just kind of like smelled like whatever they were thinking about. But it was like it's supposed to smell like almost like dynamite or like TNT, and it was just like, oh, I don't even know if it was art. It was just like too much. I smelled that. I was like, anyone who says they want to smell like this is either someone I could not know in real life or is lying. I don't believe that.
There are a lot of fragrances like that where it's like you can't be serious. Like you can't wear that and expect people to not be concerned or confused or perplexed. Because they're the kind of fragrances that would elicit confusion and concern and puzzlement because
Yeah,
they don't really smell like what you would expect any kind of fragrance meant for personal affect to wear, yet they exist.
yeah,
There's a lot, and a lot of them from that house actually.
yeah.
Not to
They
throw shade at that at zoology, but they have they run the gamut, and some of them
a lot of them are like exceptionally animalic, or yeah, just a lot of other
yeah.
random things that they're going for. I mean, Zoologist, it makes sense they would have some animalic stuff going on, but
One would hope, right? But then then it's just some of it is just beyond comprehension. And I love animalic fragrances, let me tell you. But there's something to be said about treating animalics in a perfume with reverence and respect and knowing how they work within a composition without necessarily overdosing them to the point where they're being used in a way that was never really like the whole point of using animalics, if you know what I mean, where it's like they overdose them to the point where it's no longer kind of like adding that je ne sais quoi. It's like
mm,
you know what it is and it smells like an animal's ass,
yeah, and it
and you
doesn't
no
it
longer
does not need to be the whole fragrance. It does.
right, it doesn't need to be the whole fragrance, and there are some where it's
Yes.
pretty much the whole fragrance, and then they try to play it off like there's actually like a pyramid with different accords in it, but all you're smelling is like
Yeah.
the animal butt, right?
Hyrax is the one I was talking about. I got a whiff of it from like across a room, and I was like, I'm good. Like, I'm good. Thank you. But I would never want to smell like that.
Yeah, well, the Hyrax actually, I'm assuming Hyrax, that was one actually I haven't smelled. But Hyratium, or
Mhm.
it's also called Africa stone, which is the calcified, petrified urine and feces of the Hyrax. It is a very cool, like it's such a cool material, and also for those who may be concerned, you're not bothering the animals. That's
Mhm.
it's their old latrine, and you're just scraping off whatever was being left there by several generations of Hyraxes in the past. So it is animal friendly. As a matter of fact, you're not bothering the Hyraxes. And I have the tincture, and the tincture, I love the smell of the tincture, but I know damn well that by putting the pure tincture on me, it would be really too strong. Um, I am assuming Hyrax probably has a very high dosage of the Hyratium tincture, but you know what fragrance has a tasteful, perfect dose of Hyratium? It is a Monte Cristo from Mask Milano. And that is where you can experience a really measured, judicious dose of Hyratium that adds to the composition and doesn't overpower it. It's kind of like the way civet is meant to be used, sort of like a little
Mm.
soupçon of civet and then it's just kind of making everything else sort of like come to life and bloom and become three-dimensional. But
Hmm.
I have heard about the zoologist hyrax. I think the problem with that is it's like a solenoid of of Hyratium, and that's just too strong for that. Just Hyrax is nice in the air. Up close, it's a bit funky, according to Duncan. And Perfume Temple, some
Yeah.
concoctions look like they're an experiment in how many animalic notes can be put into a fragrance. Some are interesting, but I generally can't see the point. Absolutely. Elliot, are you familiar with some of those? They're very exclusive houses where they're all like mostly like really like a bunch of rare naturals like a Rouge L'Adore or something like.
Hmm.
Are you? Yeah, those are the
I
ones.
know some of these brands.
Some of those I
Yeah.
find a little bit difficult to handle. They're not. They don't have that kind of structure that I hope to that I expect to have in a perfume. They're it's very much more. They put more like the materials. They put a lot more like value on the materials that are used than actually having like a well done composition. And they cost a lot of money, you know. Um,
I mean,
yeah, but
rarity will always cost money.
yes, the just the rarity of it, the the novelty of it. Sometimes that will cost a lot of money. Okay, I'm gonna let you share more of your favorite fragrances. I've been rambling
No,
for too long.
it's all good. I don't know. By the fireplace, it's like it's got a big dent. I used to only wear fragrance when I was like in like a freshman and sophomore in college, like once every like I don't know a couple of days, or if I was like doing something nice. I wouldn't even wear it to like a party. Honestly, it was just I guess I can't imagine what I smelled like back then, but it was nothing. It was just and then every once in a while, and then when I met my ex, I used to wear this all the time, and then it kind of just was like then the COVID happened and I like would like smell it and it would just like immediately bring me back to like all of the all like everything that was happening before when I was in Chicago. It was a very like it was kind of like an eye-opening experience as to how much it's like the scent is related to memory. And like you know it, but like you don't really know it until you have like some kind of like, oh wow, like I've been transported and I love it. And I was just probably like at home with a mask on, like walking a couple blocks to my friend's place. I'm from Connecticut, like suburban Connecticut. I was walking to a friend's place to watch like a movie on in his backyard, and I sprayed it during the summer actually, but it was probably like a cool summer evening, and I was like, like maybe things will be all right. Like I'm home. It was nice, and I've kind of still have those experiences with it every once in a while, but I don't wear it nearly as often. It's good. I still like it, and I've had it for I don't know 5 6 years now, so that's good.
It's sort of a
Um,
scent imprint. It's like you want to hold on to it because it can take you back. It is transportive, and for that, I always salute that. Hold on to it, and
mhm.
just enjoy what you have left of it for as long as you can. I don't think there's
That's
any.
the idea.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool thing. I don't think there's anything inferior about that one. You have a personal connection with it. I always thought it was a charming one, and I salute you, and I salute by the fireplace.
Let's keep rolling. I only brought a few things to my desk, but this I recently got at Stell and I paid for it. But it's
Ah, looks like a
Ashes
clandestine.
by Clandestine Laboratories. I now have tried almost everything that Mark has made because I purchased, a 1 bajillion samples from them. But it this one here it almost feels like different from a lot of the DNA that's going on in Clandestine. Um, I don't know. I smelled ashes and like it had like a visceral feel like I had a visceral experience at Stell. It was like I was going through some things. I was talking to my friend and I was like I like this, but it's like I feel like I've kind of smelled this before, or I like this, and it's not like totally different from something I have, but ashes was like wow, like it's like earthy green, like very very I don't know. I don't want to say stale, but like
But stale can be
Sterile.
okay. You're in good
Sterile.
company. Oh, sterile. Sterile's okay
Yeah.
too. Sterile, like this almost sort of like this ominous sterility that kind of is
Very
intriguing.
ominous.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
when I smell this, I think of like a cemetery almost. Ashes is like a really great name.
yeah,
Because it has this like very like fresh dirt, and to me like it feels like realistic with some greenery, and then it dries and the kind of like that goes away, the sterility kind of remains, and then you just get some really simple florals. And that's almost like I think of it as like someone like laying like fresh cut flowers down on like a gravestone. It's like all of those things kind of come together for me, and it's really wonderful. I was watching the remake or the replay of Interstellar on IMAX just 2 nights ago. I don't actually particularly love Interstellar as a movie, but it was like it's kind of like a thing, you know. It's out on IMAX. I'll go watch it, and I wore this, and it definitely like it felt like a match. Like there's like the sterility and scariness and ominous nature of space that kind of went very very well with I don't know, just all of the feelings that are going on here. I like it a lot. I think it might like by the dry down you're probably leaning like a bit feminine, but
yeah.
this is one of those ones where I just love it. I would wear it anytime, anywhere, in the right outfit, in like I don't know exactly the space that I would wear it in, but in the right kind of like minimalist, clean outfit, you know. This one's fun.
Where would you wear that? At some sort of like art opening of some type, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
A good like postmodernist art exhibition.
Right,
Fantastic.
right.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yeah. If I'm going to like a gallery in Chelsea where there's like some real D bag opening something, it's like this is for you.
Shake
I hope
things
that
up a
makes
little bit, you know?
sense.
You're in good company with that. It's like kind of like, well, you really want postmodern. I got postmodern for you.
I got this for you.
I'm actually going to put in. Have you seen? I had Mark on an Effluvium live stream previously.
I have not seen it, but I did see that you had him on, which is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I'm going to put in the link for those who haven't seen it yet, right here, and that is my Effluvium episode with Mark of Clandestine Laboratories. I think that was early 2023. What was the exact date here? We're looking at, yeah, January 31st, 2023, almost 2 years ago now. He was a guest, and you can check out the archived live stream there. Jimbo asks, Jimbo, hi. JJ, please can you tell me why a perfumer would want to use a concrete accord in fragrances? I really can't understand why someone would want to smell like wet cement. I can't really answer that question. I haven't really encountered a convincing concrete accord. There have been instances where a concrete note or accord has been listed, and I didn't really get that impression of wet cement. Um, I think that they're just trying to be postmodernist.
The
And,
Concrete by Comme des Garçons is very much trying to do that.
trying to do that. I didn't really think that they actually did it. It's interesting. It's a very interesting fragrance. I love some from Comme des Garçons that, some of the earlier ones that were meant to evoke, a dusty light bulb or, something to that effect, or like a copy machine. I have a wonderful one that, oh, it is in this bizarre bottle. It looks like it should be able to stand, but it can't stand. It has to lean on its side or be laid horizontally, and it's supposed to evoke ink and paper from a copy machine, and it has like a heliotrope accord. And I think some of that is really fun and actually enjoyable to wear, but I don't know. Why does somebody want to smell like an animal's butt? I mean, some people do. Um, but, different strokes for different folks, right? There's some things that I don't want to smell like, but I totally understand that somebody else might want to go there. Um, But, to each their own, live and let live, they say. If you want to smell like wet cement, go for it. And hopefully you'll get a lot of compliments as a result. Famous YouTuber, I only bought Narciso Rodriguez because I heard it was being discontinued. It's basically wet cement and patchouli, not bad. I actually am quite fond of that. It's such a sad fragrance, Narciso Rodriguez EDT. And I like the EDP even more because it has this sort of sad violet accord in it too. It just smells like a overcast gray rainy day. Pat Lester says fragrance and movies go hand in hand, almost like grabbing a specific snack for a particular movie. And Orisaris, is that the blue one with the violet leaf? I think she's referring to the Narciso Rodriguez mentioned. It's nice to see some activity in the chat. Not John 9, hello, good to see you. Myths Man gives me that vibe. And Zarina makes a fragrance that smells like buttered popcorn. Yeah, I don't know. That gives me kind of like Jelly Belly vibes when Jelly Belly has like that. You know the one I'm talking about? Like the buttered popcorn one where it's like, yeah, kinda, but no thanks. Orisaris, the dusty light bulb one is yeah, it is an acquired taste. The odeur, I think it's odeur.
Have you tried sorry. Have you tried Warm Bulb by Clue?
You know what? I actually was supposed to get from a friend the sample set. I haven't gotten it yet in the mail. But I want to try that house. I love the aesthetic of the house too. Looks really
Great
70s. Like, yeah. Oh, really? Cool.
They're Chicago based. So Murs
right.
like had done a couple of events with them, but Warm Bulb is really like very it's very accurate. Like I've had multiple people completely like separate from like fragrance, completely separate from like separated from even like the copy, right? Like I didn't tell them what I was spraying. They're like, it smells like staticky. And I was like, oh wow, like it really does. You don't have to be told it to like immediately get the feeling and the sensation.
You know what I've always wanted? Now I know that you're a bit younger and maybe you weren't around too much for like the older like tube TVs, but when I was younger, the static if you go near like yeah,
come on. I'm not like that. In 2005.
It's not like you're 12.
One, all right?
Yeah. Okay, all right. So you were actually around tube TVs, tube monitors.
Yeah, I would watch like Bob the Builder on a tube TV, and it started up, and it would like it was it had like this like static energy.
I know. I'm so rude. I'm like, I know you were potty trained like 50 years ago, but there was once upon a time there was something called like a tube TV, but like would give off static. Like you would have like that static, and there would be a smell to it. And I've always wanted to smell that in like a perfume. I'm wondering this Warm Bulb.
I think you'll find it interesting, and it definitely it does what it wants to do, but it also adds a little bit to it, right? Like you get it, but it has a little bit of sweetness. I think a little bit of vanilla.
Okay.
Just to make it like instead of just an art, like a slightly wearable, and almost it almost is this nostalgic wearability. It's not nostalgia for like something that smells from like a different time, but almost this like nostalgia of like I feel so much more at home knowing this is what it smelled like when I was with my tube TV or when I was in the attic turning the light bulb on, grabbing something and running downstairs so that nothing would kill me. That's kind of what it's like.
And I think that vanilla kind of like I would imagine that kind of works because think about vanilla, the constituents in vanilla, some of the constituents that make vanilla smell like they do are also in the glue and the binding of books. So lignin is what they call it, lignin or lignin. And I'm just thinking about like if you were at like a school or like a library and you're around these old books and you're smelling like that old book smell, but you're also smelling like the static from the equipment, like the TV, the VCR. Really dating myself, VCR. But you know what I'm saying? Like
I know what
it's kind of
I know what these things are.
I just keep like wanting to make you like
We have a ton of them. I probably have home movies on VCR.
Well, it's good you know about a VCR. Yeah. Well, I was raised on VCRs. I actually have home movies that were taped on VHS tapes from 1981 when I was like 3 years old. So I have a long history with VHS tapes, VCRs. Like a lot of scent memories with that too, interestingly enough. So I want to give you more. I want to let you talk more about your fragrances. I'm going off on too many tangents. Let's have you share.
It's all good. This is necessary. I can't give more than a couple of sentences about each and any one of them. I can tell you what what the experiences I've had with them, what my friends think about them. But at the end of the day, you need to smell these on your own for me to like actually like, you know, appropriately be able to relate them to others. I feel like I'm just not as eloquent with my ability to describe a fragrance. The copy gets me, or like whatever the notes are, like those are the notes that I imagine, at least when I smell it. I don't have like the color that comes up. It's a feeling, right?
Most people don't have the color that comes up, and frankly, sometimes it's a little distracting. It's like, leave me alone. Book paste smells so good. Yes. Put your nose into like an old paperback. Something about paperbacks that really rot, and they give off like a really sweet kind of decayed smell. I love it. All right. So what's your next one?
Well, last night I was watching just in my living room, what was it? A Summer's Tale by Eric Romer. This is like it's just a like a 20-something-year-old boy who's being silly with a bunch of women. And it's over the summer. But I was wearing White Whale by Mask Milano, which I really actually like. I despise cologne as an ingredient in general. Like, I don't know what it is, but like every single time something dries down and I smell cologne, it's like, get this off of me. Ugh. And it's one of those rare, like, I feel like a lot of marine fragrances use it a lot because it has this kind of like melony marine kind of accord. But for Mask Milano's White Whale, it does not have anything like that, but it has this like amber that really still like it feels like salty. It feels vast, and I like that one a lot. It still gives the feeling of like that by the seaside without the, I don't know, whatever nastiness is in cologne. What you know what I'm talking about?
Colognes. I'll put it in the chat for those. Supply and demand already shared it. Cologne is a scrubber for sure. Cologne, I can appreciate it depending upon how it's dosed. Cologne in smaller doses can give an effect without it being overpowering. It's just like anything. Like, you put too much salt in something, you put too much pepper in something, you're kind of gonna overpower it with whatever the salt does or the pepper does or whatever their spice, and then it's not going to be palatable. And I feel like the problem is sometimes the people who are really trying to give that like effect, they're putting just too much cologne in. And I also kind of think like cologne's kind of like cilantro too, because some people, they taste cilantro and they like it, they enjoy it. I'm one of those people, I can appreciate it. But then there's some people who are like, cilantro, it tastes like you put a bar of soap in your mouth. You know what I mean? And I think you could just be one of those people. Like, cologne is just, for some people, cologne smells like kind of like eggs. Like, the dry down kind of smells like egg whites that have been sitting at room temperature for a little too long on your skin.
Like, didn't last as long. I enjoy it for like a second, for like, like a 30 minutes, but then there's many fragrances where it's just like it just sticks around forever. And it may just be like I had a really bad like experience with one. I tried, this is very early on in my like fragrance journey, but I tried a sample of Mega Mare by Orto Parisi, my God, I despised that, and I was so looking forward to it. I was like, what everyone said about it like totally got me, this like dark kind of like mysterious Kraken-esque vibe. And then ugh, I smelled it. I was like, I can't do this. My roommate, like I walked into the room. This was one time my roommate was like, dude, what in the world is that? And I was like, I need to get this off. I need to get this off so bad. Yeah, look at that. Supply and demand. We're in sync here. Megamare's cologne just made me not for me.
I love neroli, so I'll have to disagree with supply.
I disagree with. I will also disagree with neroli, but
respectfully. But I know that neroli is sort of like people are divided with that too. But Megamare, oh, I have some issues with Orto Parisi as a house in general. I think that my problem is that Alessandro Gualtieri, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Gualtieri. He was pushing the envelope a little bit too much by overdosing certain things that were not really, in some ways, in an unprecedented manner, to the point where the stuff some of the fragrances literally smelled like oppressive to me. Like and hard to wash off the skin. I am so afraid of fragrances that you try to wash it off and it stays. You take a shower, it stays. You can't wash it off.
What's in that? Like what's going on that I can't get this off?
Yeah. I feel really weirded out by that. And any of the ones that I tried of his have that kind of vibe to them. Like Bergamasque was just mentioned. My problem with Bergamasque is its dry down. I think that the opening is really nice, but the dry down is evil in exactly the reason that I just explained. It just doesn't fucking go away. And I just don't like fragrances like that. There are very few. I can count on one hand fragrances in my collection that do that I actually do love. There are like a few other qualities that make up for it, and I'm willing to deal with having to scrub it off my skin when I'm done with it, or or I'm just fine with it staying for a long time. On one hand, and I have like over 1,000 in my museum.
I think they're doing really well now, though, Orto Parisi in this new kind of like TikTok sphere of niche perfumery, because people love like the idea of like a beast mode, like crazy projection fragrance that lasts forever. They're like, I want to spray something in the morning, and I still want it to be like nauseating people around me by 9 p.m. It's like stop, just don't do that.
And it's so absurd when they say like, oh, this only lasts 8 hours. Like, why do you want it to last more than 8 hours? Like,
I'd rather try completely 3 fragrances in a day than have like one that lasts that long. It's kind of I don't know. It almost feels I don't know. It's brash. It's too much.
It's just way too much. But there's a market for it. There's an audience for it. They love it. Beast mode, everlasting joy. I just get like, I feel like another thing that happens is that people will end up getting parosmia, which is like diminished sense of smell, or anosmia after a while, and they don't smell it anymore because the molecules are so big and they lodge into your olfactory receptors.
Stuck there.
They get stuck there. So then your brain is like, I don't want this information anymore. I'm not smelling it anymore. And then they're like, I don't smell it anymore. It's not lasting anymore. And then meanwhile, they're like ruining other people's lives around them because they sprayed 50 sprays on them. They're not smelling it anymore, and they're thinking that there's something wrong with the fragrance, while everyone else is being assaulted. I think it's cloud cuckoo land as far as I'm concerned. I don't really know.
But Alessandro Gualtieri, I have Black Afghano from Nasamato, and I actually I like it a lot. Actually, like I don't think it's nearly as overbearing as any of the Orto Parisis that I've tried. I guess it's like it's a brand doing a different thing, really. But I don't know. Something about those Orto Parisis. Like, I still have my 1 milliliter samples, and I'm like, I just need to get rid of these.
Yeah, just
not for me, at least. Not for me. But
hazardous waste disposal. Uh, I like Nasomato a little bit more, a little bit more, but I like it. I actually like that line a lot more. It's been around for a lot longer, and I have a soft spot for the one that I did buy from the house. I shared a review for it a little not too long ago. Absinthe. I think it's the most nuanced of all of them, but there are a few in the house that I really do respect and really were the tour de force for niche during their time, like as you said, the Black Afghano, for example, Duro. You know, I remember when they were big. They were big, like we're talking maybe like 14 years ago, and
at the time they were doing something very new.
Exactly, and now you have a lot. You know, the descendants are kind of trying to reinvent that, and it's kind of hard to reinvent something that's just it was so unique for its time. So I have more respect for what the perfumer did with his original house, and much like the Orme bottles, I loved the bottles for
Oh yeah, on
Nasomat as
Black
well.
Afghano, that like I have it. It's far. It's I'm not going to walk all the way to my bedroom, but it's like it's
Yeah,
those like wooden or like special caps that they have. Very nice,
it,
and
it
I do like
really
it's only 30 milliliters. I have so many bottles. I'm never going to use all of this damn fragrance. I need to like the 30 milliliters is a good amount for me. When I like think about it.
almost 2 days to scrub off, says supply and demand. Oris asks, does white whale have ambergris or ambergris, depending on how you want to pronounce it? I don't know if the perfumer actually used a genuine tincture. And I'm sorry to say, I don't recall trying it. I'm actually interested in trying it because of Elliot's recommendation. But when I try it, I'll see if I can discern. Elliot, do you know that I have a piece of ambergris? I sometimes show it off.
Very cool. That sounds like a kind of an artifact that a perfume or a fragrance lover would have.
And I've tinctured some of it here. That's my gray ambergris. And I'll zoom in. Yeah, and it smells so good. Oh my God. This is genuine ambergris from New Zealand. And it looks like a rock, but it's a lot lighter, a lot less dense. It's a bit porous. And this is my reference, like smelling this piece of ambergris, and also doing a tincture is what has enabled me, to really understand how, to detect it in perfumes, because even if a perfume doesn't have like a ton of ambergris tincture in it, there's even like bases like international flavors and fragrances. There's ambergris olfac that is used by perfumers, and that I actually purchased this when I was studying perfume making, and it's precious to me. My piece of light gray, high quality New Zealand ambergris. Put that back there, right
what is
where it's safe.
Massimiliano is a nice brand. A lot of things I've tried from them. I like Russian tea. I know is a very popular one from them that I've tried, and I don't have any historical connection to it. I'm not Russian. I don't know too many Russians, but it is quite nice. And what is it? La Tessa, that iris. My mom really, really likes that one.
What I would recommend, so Russian tea is supposed to evoke the Russian caravan blend of tea. So if you can try to find some of that and brew it and drink it, really great. It's like a combination of, I think, it's a combination of different black teas, but it includes Lapsang Souchong tea, which is one of my favorite teas. It is smoked with pine wood. Excellent stuff. But Russian Caravan is sort of a blend. So I think Russian tea is supposed to evoke the Russian Caravan blend of tea. So Oris Eris, what is the opposite of beast mode? Quiet, beauty.
I liked the answer that someone said of Joe Malone.
I'm so far behind here. Joe
I'm, I'm,
Malone is the opposite of beast mode.
I kind of agree there. My wood
No,
sage and
yeah.
sea salt lasts about 25 minutes before I no longer smell it at all, and no one else can smell it either.
That's funny. There's actually a few from Joe Malone that I really do enjoy. One of them is the Red Roses cologne, which is like
Mm.
one of the best red soliflors. What am I talking about? One of the best rose soliflors that I'm aware of out there. How can I smell like a sexy Italian? What fragrances do Italian women like? I love the AD conversations that I catch in the chat here. I'm scared of more Ortos. Gonna get into Nasamato instead. Finally, the bottles are cooler looking too. I don't even like the look of the Ardo Parisi bottle.
No, they're
Either.
so, yeah,
It's
they're
just
really weird.
Centauri, Diandara, Ruined Myrrh for me. Not familiar with it. I'm familiar with the Centauri. Those bottles are kind of garish. See, I'm just as much a critic. Like I will critique presentation just as much. Like there have been certain houses where I will easily just like check off my list. Like, no, I'm not going to waste my time because the bottles look ugly. Because it's a great way to kind of narrow down. Like there's so many things to explore. If you're trying to find it hard to narrow it down, that's an easy way of narrowing it down if you don't like the aesthetic. All right, folks, I'm trying to catch up here. Current beast mode is actually 1/3 of how long Kuros used to last. Gotta love the Animalis base. Sticks. JJ isn't single. Why are you here? I'm not going to touch that one. Hello there, Sticks. 10.2 Schlonghammer. And I'd rather buy a Zarafrag than Joe Malone. Well, there you have it. Okay. Share another one with us. We have about 15 minutes left here. We've got through so many, right?
Yeah, we really have. Okay. I Another one that I really like. It's more of this like citrusy, summery one is Montserrat by Fazodic. Fazodic is Bruno Fazzolari. Honestly, I don't know. It was another one that I tried at where was it? At Mer's Apothecary. As you can tell, there's a lot of discovery happens there, or a lot of discovery happens online, and a lot of testing happens there. And I messaged him, and he sent me that and his new release that he released this past spring or summer called oh gosh, I should probably know. He sent it to me. I almost, how can I forget what it was? Now I feel bad, and I want to look it up. Soft Focus, which was like, it's almost like a poolside fragrance, but Montserrat is honestly it's another like comforting, almost like childlike summer fragrance for me. It's I want to say grapefruit, like a pretty standard grapefruit, and then it has this, what he says is, and I can kind of understand it, but I don't totally see it, is a note of wet plaster. It's a weird thing to like say it like is in the base, but there is this kind of, I don't know, pasty, just like basementy vibe to it. And like when I smell it, I think about like just being like a very messy child in my unfinished basement in my parents' house. It's like I used to get up to like a lot of shenanigans there, so it kind of feels like that. And grapefruit's a great, like just a great, nice, easygoing I don't know, smell for the summer always. And I liked it when I tried it. Put it on. It dried down very simply. They're not like, I don't think they're like exceptionally overpriced. They're 30 milliliters, and I was like, yeah, would love to support the brand. And Bruno has since like followed me on Instagram. And, messages me every once in a while, just like anyone would when I talk about these things. So.
Really
cool to have connections to like know a little bit more about these like about the perfumers or like the brand owners. You know, like I went to the lake in Chicago, and I was wearing soft focus. I like probably like posted on my Instagram story, and he's like, "This is exactly what I wanted for this. I wanted someone to just, you know, to have like an easy breezy day and enjoy it." And I was like, "This is exactly what's happening." You know, I'm just here. I'm just having a good time with my friends. You know, drinking on the beach, and that's it. And well, yeah, drinking. That's an illegal activity, but it's fine. You know, publicly on the beach, but no, drinking publicly in Chicago is not illegal in my mind. And it's cool. You know, it's nice to like see these people who like they clearly like put like a lot of effort into stuff. Same with, you know, Market Clandestine. It's like to enjoy the fragrances almost like the way that they're meant to be, and see it mean something to them. Like that feels nice. So yeah,
Well, it's nice to know that the vision came into fruition through your wearing it. Yeah. That's awesome.
Let me see.
Famous YouTuber, aka Duncan, Pierre Cardin, Santar, Queer Etalon. Have you tried it, JJ? It's kind of like Furio, but better. I'm familiar with the line of fragrances from Pierre Cardin that have the horse heads, kind of like they look like the night, like a chess knight piece. But I've never tried any of them. I know that Bangkok Hound on Instagram shared one of them recently, but no, I have not tried it. I'll look out for it, but I'm not in any rush to collect too much more. And I've reached critical mass. I've reached critical mass. I'm at the point where I'm looking to invest my money elsewhere. I have enough fragrances to last me for several lifetimes. I have a museum.
Do you know the number?
Do I know the number? Oh, yes, I do. And I always feel like this like queasy feeling when I mention it. I have over 1,000. I have 1,060, which is not a normal number for anybody who just wears fragrance. It's for those lunatics, like I'm in the same league as those who collect washing machines and have over 70 of them in their basement, and they like to run them now and then.
That's not a real thing, right?
It's a real thing.
Yeah. Collect washing machines? Run up your electricity bill for no reason?
And they'll try different ones. Well, it's not like they're having them all run at once, but well, what do I really know? I'm not really an expert on.
They could be layering.
They could be layering. Yeah. There are people who collect washing machines, like from the earliest ones from the early 20th century to whatever. Yeah.
I guess there's a collecting part of really anything. I'm sure there's people who collect vacuums. You know, actually, I almost like feel like I've seen like a TLC episode of someone who collects vacuums.
It's called compulsivity disorder. Yes. Yeah, vacuum cleaners. Like you name it, somebody's collecting it. I mean, there are people who collect cars, and they're not going to be driving some of those cars more than once in their lifetime, but they have the money and the compulsion to collect many cars, you know? So I'm just in that category, except it's fragrances.
Here's an interesting question. A lot of like collectors of more vintage things, there is value to these, right? You think about collecting cars, or collecting art is a big one, or even collecting clothes. You can sometimes like find like diamonds in the rough. Maybe not so much in cars, but you hold on to them. And if you hold on to them well, they can increase in value. It's not a really, you know, great way to live your life, just collecting things, not using them, and then reselling them. But do you think, is that something that people do in the fragrance space with vintage like fragrances? I wonder.
Yeah, well, I think it is important for you to see whatever you have as a potential investment. And, you know, we don't live our lives in this linear manner where everything always matters the same and at the same intensity throughout your life. And I'm not going to sit here and say that my collection of 1,000 fragrances is going to have the same meaning to me 10 years ago as it does now. So if and when that were to change, then I would do what I can to make sure that they retain their value. And yeah, so I look at some of it as a potential investment. We change in our attachments as well. Like I have a past as a DJ. You know, I wanted to talk to you about music because you have exquisite music taste. By the way, I watched one of your videos,
record collection,
and you were matching like outfits to certain albums, and I'm like, this kid is on to something here. Got some great taste. Um, but what I was saying is I was a DJ for about 10 years, for almost exactly 10 years, and I collected records much the same way as I collect fragrances now. And I've sold all of them.
All of them.
All of
Wow.
them. Yeah. I went through it. I got everything out of collecting vinyl. I went through it. I was in love with it. I was obsessed. I just went through it all, and then I decided, you know what, it's time to let go, move on to a new thing.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Wow. One day I hope to have the I don't even know what the word is, the guts to get rid of all of these things.
Well, how many do you have? Because I had the crazy amount of
Oh,
vinyl as I have the crazy amount of fragrances now.
I,
So
I've,
how
I
many
have
do you have now?
330 records right now.
Okay. All right.
It's not
I
it's
mean,
not
that's,
that crazy.
yeah. But keep it like, keep it very very curated, and just, try to resist that compulsion of like, oh, well, if I only have this, then my collection will be complete, because that's what I would have the problem with. I'd be like,
No. A collection can never be complete because there's always new things that are going to come up, and there's always, well, with records, it's also like there's so many different iterations and pressings that you can have of individual ones. It's like, oh, I'm not a huge like pressing nerd. I don't have a sophisticated enough setup to really like determine the difference between the 1964 and 1965 repress of like A Kind of Blue or whatever. Like that's not my thing. But there's people, like anything, there's people who really care. These things really do matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, nothing will ever be complete. And the other thing, like a book collection or a movie collection or anything like that, like there's a limit to which, like I think about this a lot, where it's like there's only so many books I'm going to read in my lifetime. Like, even if I live to 100 and I read 30 books a year for the rest of my life, like there are so many books that I will want to read that I will never
I
read.
know. When you
There's so
think
many
about
albums I
that,
will want to listen to that I will never listen to, or songs that I didn't discover, or clothing items that I'll never, have, or fragrances that I'll never smell. There's all of this. So you do have to be very selective in what you decide to
yeah.
purchase, and knowing that like there's a finite amount of anything that you can really, I don't know, amass and appreciate.
Right, right. Because otherwise you you know that it's an endless pit. So you got to decide somewhere where you feel like the time has come, where you feel it, like it's okay, that you don't have to try to reach this end game that doesn't exist. That's kind of where I am now. It's like for example, Duncan mentioned that Pierre Cardin, and I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of cool, but it's just kind of like I've reached that plateau of satisfaction. And I think
Mm,
just as exactly like you said, like, our life is finite. It's like I want to just kind of enjoy. Like I already have so much stuff. I'm trying to figure out like how am I possibly going to enjoy and appreciate what I have. So why don't I just sort of slow it down now so that I just appreciate what I
yeah,
have.
no,
Yeah.
I
Well, however I can. And then over time, like you can decide, this I don't feel the connection with this anymore. And then slowly you'll start to chip away, like, okay, this deserves a home, that it will appreciate it more. And it's the whole process of the collector.
Absolutely. That's mostly me with clothing. I always have a list of things. It's like, do these really mean what I thought they were going to mean to me? Like, I bought them with the vision of them meaning so much to me, right? And then did they actually live up to that promise a year later? And if the
Yeah.
answer is no, or I still don't see them, then it's like, okay, then they're going on the chopping block, and I'm gonna go put them on eBay and hasta luego. You know, that's it.
Yeah, I know that whole story. Yeah, yeah. eBay, Mercari, I don't know, whatever else, like selling things. It's so much easier to sell stuff now online. It's like it used to be
And
so much
I
more.
still think it's a nuisance. Every time I'm like selling things online individually, I'm like, I just want to give this to a consignment store and get rid of it. Like get it out of here.
Oh, well, I will totally do that. If something sits around for too long and nobody's grabbing it, it's like I just want it gone. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why I offer this the six, what is it, the 4 bottle thing with my buy me a coffee. It's like they're not bad fragrances, folks, or else I wouldn't have wasted my time getting them. It's just I don't need them anymore. They need a
Oh,
home. Or Sarah says I'm off to look at Xmas lights and drink hot chocolate. Thanks for the convo, folks. My best to you. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, why don't we have you share one more of your fragrances? Then what we'll do is we'll wrap things up here. We'll go backstage, chat a little bit more, and we'll call it an evening here. So one more out of your collection that you'd like to share with us.
Let me think about it. Okay. One more. Once again, that's something that I found at Mers Apothecary, because I'll just keep it like really consistent. I think almost everything was found at Mers or Stell in all of what I've talked about. Is Terre Noire by Madeleine. I don't actually know if they're really a fragrance like house. They do like a lot of like homeware goods and all of that other stuff, but they consider it like a kind of like a soil tincture smell. But for me, it's just this very soft, ethereal, like spicy one that I also like. I almost like Pavloved myself into wearing it when I went to a movie and would eat popcorn. So like I would spray it and then immediately think okay, I'm going to go to a movie and eat popcorn, even if I was just like wearing it at work or something. It was just a consistent, I love going to the movies. So this was not something that happened very, infrequently. I don't know what it was. It just like, it sat well with like the sweaters that I would usually wear to the theaters. And it just was like the scent bubble was very just like me. It wasn't giving it off to anyone else. It wasn't like disturbing people. And it was soft and spicy and a little bit petrichor-y. I don't know anything more than that. But I smelled it at Mers and I liked it and I tested it. And then I came back and I was like, you know what? I'll grab a bottle. Why not? And that was probably another early one. Whatever I get now, whatever I continue getting in the future, who knows how much research is going to go into these purchases, because it's not as little and as like free as I have been kind of spending my money in the last year or so.
But I love those discoveries, the ones where you just happen upon it, you're curious about it, you have very little knowledge of it, or you come into it with you just don't know. You go into a store and what does this smell like? And then you have a connection with it. It wasn't based on any kind of like recommendation or hype or anything. And those can be really special as well, because you just discover them on your own. And that's why, like you said, it's great to be able to go into a store and just make those discoveries. And it's just not based on any kind of influence at all. And I have a number of those. I've had a number of those for years. And I always think back to my time going into, into stores in Boston, like Neiman Marcus and Barney's, before I even went to like a fragrance boutique, and and everything was just so sort of new and exciting to me. And, it ended up being like the houses that I'd never heard of until I walked into a store are the houses that are really important to me now, like Serge Lutens. Like nobody was like, oh, you're gonna try and use Serge Lutens. This was like in 2008, and I walked into a Barney's and I'm like, what is this? This is so cool. And that's how I learned about Serge Lutens. That's how I learned about Frederic Malle. That's how I learned about like the Comme des Garçons fragrances, is by going into a Barney's New York and just completely having not been aware of any of it. And that was like the catalyst for getting into it hardcore. And I don't know, there's just something to be said about that. That was just my, I don't know, my spiel on your telling me about this one particular fragrance. Yeah.
I agree that it's helpful, but I don't have I want to be a little bit smarter with my money, having moved from Chicago, a much cheaper city, to New York, a much more expensive city. So it has to be very, very special if I'm just going to like drop $200. Like $200 is a lot of money or something. Yeah, I mean, fragrances are expensive. So I have to be in love with it, especially considering I already have enough fragrances to last, maybe not a lifetime, but a long time.
Yeah. Oh, you certainly do. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not everybody is in the league that I'm in. I know, when you get to know the fragrance community, it's like a small handful of people, and it really is just something that I would never expect anybody else to do. It's like, and then also like I like, I like to consider myself sort of like a historian and a writer. And I'm always like, oh, I always just try to justify basically how crazy I am. Like, well, it's because I want to write about it, or I want it
Mm.
for reference, like there's
Yeah.
all these things that I try to concoct. But, the more even keel, level headed fragrance enthusiasts, I think that it is very smart to think to yourself, like, I want to be connoisseur. I want this to be curated. I don't want it to, I want to avoid impulse purchases. I think that's very sound. It's very healthy. And if I were to coach somebody on like how to be, you know, a healthy fragrance enthusiast is exactly the kind of approach that I would give to people. So I think you're doing the right thing by not, going overboard. But if you do choose to if you do choose to try something else, actually Duncan mentions chypre which
Mm.
it's not smelled like it's not spelled rather like the animal. It's mousse as in moss. Chypre from this is from that house of Ritza
Ariza.
Effluvium.
Yeah. This is a big one
Yes.
from them, right?
Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorites, and it does smell like the vegetation and plants and mushrooms and moss and lichen of the
Cool.
understory. It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. Supply and demand. Got a decant wear perfume before I buy. Glad I got a decant of Precious Treasures instead of dropping $2.95 on it. Not impressed. There you go. Yeah, you don't want to do these blind buys on things that you haven't smelled, because sometimes it's a pain in the ass to try to resell it at the same value as you bought it, and you end up having to you end up having to take a loss. I only spent outrageous money on blind buys I know very little about. Well, yeah, I mean, I've done blind buys. I have, for something where it's just like I've waited so long to try to find a sample, nobody has a sample, and then I blind buy it. But I don't do it too often.
Yeah.
On
It's
occasion.
also like I can get a lot of I can get a lot of things for free just by being nice and asking.
Yeah, the
Having a
perks.
following, it really does help with that stuff. So, like, I go to when I go to Stell, I take pictures of a lot of the things that I liked, and I wouldn't have tried all. I would have tried like one of them, right, with the dry down, but
Yeah.
maybe like five of them where I'm like, I kind of really do like these, or like, I think I would like them, and then I'll DM a brand and be like, can I try this? Like one or two, nothing crazy. And every once in a while, one of them responds and is like, "We'd love to send this to you." And then I get it, and I'm like, usually I'm very impressed. I'm like, this is great. I believe in Stell's curation and like the brands that they have, and they ended up working. Then every once in a while, I'll get something. I'm like, oops. And that's okay because I didn't spend any money on it. I can just put
Right.
it on my Instagram story, say thank you, and move right on.
Yeah, yeah. The oopsies are going to be inevitable. They just will be,
Yeah,
and then you just handle it with grace and finesse, right?
exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me and accepting my invitation. Stick around. We'll chat a little bit more backstage before we both get ready for night night. And I'm just going to let the folks who are tuned in right now, in 2 weeks, on January 2nd, we're going to have Gabe Oppenheim coming back. You may know Gabe Oppenheim from his book that was making waves about 3 years ago, The Ghost Perfumer. He's actually going to be coming back. We're going to be talking more about some hot goss in the perfume world. He has some juicy stuff to share with us. And he is also going to be discussing his new book. I will be looking forward to that. He is never a dull moment with Gabe, so that'll be a lot of fun. 2 weeks from now, January 2nd, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check that out. Elliot, thank you so much. Stick around. We'll be talking backstage, and everybody have a great morning, afternoon, evening, night, depending upon where you are. Take care now.
Thank you.